Welcome back to the Tower and another installment of Distory, a monthly series where I talk about a significant event in the history of Disney parks and resorts on the day that it happened. I was actually pleasantly surprised when I looked at the poll results from last month to see what topic I was going to be discussing today, and the winner was actually Test Track. And I'm super surprised because it was against Pirates of the Caribbean, and I really thought more people would vote for Pirates, but Test Track won by quite a large margin. So I am really excited to be talking to you about one of my absolute favorite attractions today. On this day in Distory, Test Track opened in Future World at Epcot back in 1999. But before we dive in with Test Track, let's talk a little bit about its predecessor, World of Motion. World of Motion was one of Epcot's opening day attractions and was sponsored by General Motors. It focused on the past, present, and future of transportation through the use of animatronics and projections. Around the same time that World of Motion's sponsorship with GM was expiring, GM was kind of in the middle of a financial crisis that included budget cuts and a lot of layoffs, so they weren't entirely sure if they wanted to continue sponsoring an attraction with Disney. Eventually, GM did agree to sponsor another attraction for Disney, but they did not want to continue sponsoring World of Motion. Instead, they wanted something that focused around their vehicles specifically, not just a generalized overview of transportation. So, Imagineers visited the Milford Proving Ground, which is owned by GM, and started work on an attraction that would come to be known as Test Track. For those of you that may not know, the original Test Track that debuted in 1999 essentially made you a crash test dummy in one of GM's cars and put you through all the same paces that they put their cars through before they put them on the market. There was a suspension test that took you over rocky terrain, an anti-lock brake system test that showed the difference between when anti-lock brakes are turned on and turned off, environmental tests including a heat chamber, cold chamber, and a corrosion chamber, a handling test that took you around sharp curves at increasing speeds and nearly crashed you into a semi-truck before you finally broke out of the building and went 64.9 miles per hour in a giant loop around the attraction. In order to make way for this thrilling new experience, World of Motion officially closed its doors on January 2nd, 1996. Once the attraction was closed, they completely gutted the interior of the building and added a track around the exterior of the building that would eventually be used for the speed test. With the exception of the external track, the outside of the building remained largely unchanged. Test Track's original opening date was slated for May of 1997, but as sometimes is the case, Imagineers ran into several different problems that postponed that opening date by about 2 years. One of the problems Imagineers ran into was that the wheels that were on the cars could not stand up to the paces that the cars were being put through. Eventually, they were able to overcome this challenge, but then of course, there was another challenge, and this one was a little bit more problematic. Originally, the programming system for Test Track would only allow for 6 cars to be on the track at any given time. For efficiency reasons, Disney wanted 29 cars to be on the track. It took over a year to resolve, but eventually Imagineers were able to get the programming system to handle 29 cars on the track at once. Eventually, Test Track was past at least most of its technical difficulties and celebrated its official grand opening on March 17th, 1999, and quickly became a favorite among guests. On January 6th, 2012, Disney announced that Test Track would be getting completely overhauled, and this time the attraction would be sponsored by Chevrolet, not General Motors as a whole. In an interview with Forbes, Grace Morgan, who is GM's director of auto shows, exhibits, and experimental marketing, said that the original Test Track was a safety story that was a little bit outdated, and they were trying to make an attraction that was focused around Chevy and that would show consumers that Chevy is dedicated to modern and innovative vehicles. The updated version of the attraction officially opened to the public on December 6th, 2012. Nicknamed by many Disney fans as Tron Track due to the glowing and futuristic vibe of this overhaul, the attraction now tests capability, responsiveness, efficiency, and power. One of the really cool positives of this update is that now towards the end of the queue, while you're still waiting in line in order to kill some time and have a really fun experience, guests are able to create a virtual car that they will then be testing as the attraction goes on. So, while 6 guests may end up riding in the same physical car on the track, you may have designed multiple different cars virtually, and you'll get to see how they all stand up as you're riding through this attraction, which is pretty cool. Many of the same elements from the original Test Track are included in this new version, but they've all been rethemed. Instead of testing your anti-lock brake system, you now skid through a rainstorm, and you still do go around very sharp curves at increasing speeds while surrounded by trees, but the trees are all covered in neon instead of being, normal trees. And you do almost hit a semi, but that semi is now completely neon and glows. hence Tron Track. One of the most noticeable differences in my opinion was the loss of the hot and cold chambers. I always really enjoyed that, and that is no longer present in the new version of Test Track. But aside from that change, the actual journey of the ride feels very similar. At the end of the attraction, you can participate in a lot of different activities that utilize the custom car that you created when you were waiting in line. You can race your car in a video game type setting. You can see how your car stacks up against different designs throughout the day, and you can take pictures with your car. Like, they put your car on this like screen behind you, and then you get to stand next to it and take pictures, so that's pretty cool. There's also models of actual Chevrolet cars in that same room, and there's Chevy employees there that can answer any questions you have about those cars as well. Something really cool and exciting that I just learned while researching for this video is that there are a lot of nods to World of Motion in this new version of Test Track. You can find the World of Motion logo on the sides of trash cans, on the banners at the entrance of the attraction, and on the wait time signs. There's also a sign on the outside portion of the track that has the letters FN 2B FRE, which is a reference to the World of Motion theme song, Fun to Be Free. Lastly, there is an image of a futuristic city that you can see twice within the ride. Once right after the brake test, and again on one of the signs once you go outside the building. And these images are of a city called Center Core, which was featured on World of Motion. Many fans were disappointed with the Test Track refurbishment and did prefer the original, but that doesn't stop the ride from pulling over an hour wait every single day. I personally do still love Test Track, but I do think the original had a more complete and immersive story, but I think they're both great in their own ways. Test Track was the first thrill ride to come to Epcot, and in my opinion that started sort of a renaissance, if you will, within the park, because shortly after we got rides like Mission Space and Soarin', which are equally thrilling experiences that we may have never gotten if Test Track would have flopped. Also, the technology used for Test Track is the first generation of the same technology that's used for Journey to the Center of the Earth over at Tokyo Disney Resort. Additionally, Test Track also clearly inspired Radiator Springs racers over at Disney California Adventure, and in my opinion, that park would not be complete without that attraction. Test Track is easily one of the best parts of Epcot, and it has inspired changes and growth and new experiences all around the world. And that's why it's an important part of our Distory. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit the thumbs up for me if you enjoyed this video. Make sure you vote in the poll up in the cards to let me know what you'd like to see for April's Distory. Also, did you prefer the original Test Track or do you love Test Track 2.0? I know a lot of people have like really strong opinions on it, so I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. And as always, for more magical Disney content, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a magical day, and I will see you real soon. Bye!